Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot patterning. And I've definitely got a pretty interesting combo out here today, and one that we might see some really good results through, or one that it might completely blow the pattern wide open. I really don't know, but I do think there's a definite chance that we do see some really tight buckshot patterns today. So for the shell I've got out here today, I've got some more of the Federal Premium buckshot loads with the flight control wad. These are a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 9 pellet double aught buck loads, and these have performed really well in previous testing. And speaking of previous testing, if you have not seen when we tested these through a bunch of different chokes, all the way from a cylinder bore all the way up through a full choke, you might want to go see that video first. I'll throw the card up here in the corner to get kind of a reference point on what today's kind of idea is, because it's definitely one that a lot of people would not expect to work at all. So as for the setup I've got, I brought out the Remington 1187 again. However, I threw in this choke. This is a Colonial Arms RC-TK2, which is their extra full 675 constriction, technically turkey choke. But being 675 constriction, it is about the extra full range and not, you know, your 660, 665 typical turkey chokes. So it might work out well for us. Again, if you haven't seen the previous tests that we've done with these buckshot loads with the flight control wad, surprisingly enough, they seem to do better with a tight choke. So there's definitely a potential that we see a really tight pattern today through this choke. But on the flip side, we could have reached the point where it starts to get too tight and we get flyers in the pattern. Definitely think it's going to be really interesting, because it might work, it might really not work, but if it does, I think it's going to look pretty good. But anyway, as for the test, we're going to do it the same as we usually do it. I have the big paper set up at 40 yards. I also have the chronograph, so we'll be able to see what kind of speed we're running. The box was claiming 1325, so we'll see how close it gets to that number. And of course, I do have the templates and stuff like that to lay over our pattern and kind of get a better reference point on what the pattern actually looks like if you were to take it out into the field. So let's go over here, get you guys a view of everything. We'll shoot it, we'll look at our chrono speed, and we'll go down and see how it did. I definitely think this is going to be pretty interesting. So let's head over here and shoot it and see what happens. Alright, so that shell gave us 1350 through the chronograph. The box is claiming 1325, so yeah, we definitely saw the box claim and a little bit more. So nothing too weird or out of the ordinary up here. Looks pretty good as far as chrono number goes, but how did it actually shoot down range through that extra full choke? Let's go take a look and see. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. Now obviously the white spray paint mark was my point of aim, and we pretty much nailed it. And for a reference, the paper is 36 inches wide by a little bit more than 36 inches tall. And we see, well, a kind of mixed bag here. The center area of this pattern, those 6 pellets right there, that's 11 inches, which is probably the hottest and tightest core area of a buckshot pattern that we've ever got. However, as you can see, we do have 3 flyers around the edge here that we have not typically seen from these flight control buckshot loads. From the farthest hole over on the left there to the farthest bottom right hole, that's 27 inches of spread. So our core area being 11 inches is really good looking, but we do see a few flyers, which does make sense. I think we've hit the point in choke constriction where the core still looks really good, but we just start to squeeze the outside pellets just a little bit too much and send them off into flyers. So I think that if we had like a 680 constriction choke, that would probably be the ticket right there. But with that being said, let's throw up some of the templates here and see what they actually look like. We'll start with the 10-inch circle, and we'll really get an idea of how hot that core area is. Okay, so here's our 10-inch circle, and as we can see, we have 4 pellets within there and one that almost clipped the right edge of that circle over there. So 4 definite, almost 5 that, I mean, if you were aiming at an animal's vital area or a deer's vital area, that 10-inch circle is definitely accurate. So you would have hit them with at least 4, if not 5 of those pellets right through that vital area where you would want them to be. So definitely looking pretty good there. Now, I'm not even going to bother throwing the 30-inch circle up because we know that everything would be within there because it's a 27-inch spread. So let's skip right to the deer template and put it up and see what the shot would have looked like if you would have actually taken it on a deer in the field. All right, so here's our deer template, and if we line it up with our point of aim, we have his front leg down there and his neck just starts off to the right side. And we had a total of 7 out of the 9 pellets hit this deer. 6 of them are all right in the vital area right there. Any one of those pellets would have taken this deer down. I mean, you pretty much have from the back of the lungs / liver area all the way up to the main arteries coming off the top of the heart going up at the neck. All of that area is covered. We do have one back towards his hind end a little bit. Absolutely a dead deer, no question about it whatsoever. Might not be the best performance you can possibly ever get out of these flight control buckshot loads, but if it's what you had, it would absolutely work. But just for the sake of it, I think it's gonna be pretty much the same story, but let's throw the hog template up just to see what it looks like real quick. All right, so here's our pig template, and yeah, pretty much the same story. Still 7 pellets that hit him. Absolutely a dead pig, there's no doubt about it. Any one of those pellets would have probably gotten the job done, or at least got into something vital on that pig. So definitely a dead hog, no doubt about it, and pretty decent looking pattern, except those few flyers, I'd say. Okay, and here's that flight control wad out of that shell. And these ones in the buckshot loads are purple, and they have the big petals that open up on the sides. And as we can see, you can see the slight dimple right here. So I think we've definitely reached a point where we've got just enough constriction to start squishing the wad together as it hits the choke, which is definitely why we saw those flyers. It's not enough constriction to ruin the core of the pattern, but it's definitely enough to skew the path of the few pellets that are on the outside or the ones that are up here in the front or something. But as for the rest of the wad here, everything still looks pretty much absolutely normal. Nothing down in there, obviously. I definitely just think we've reached just enough constriction to start squishing it in, which is why we saw those flyers, which does make sense with how this wad functions and the pattern that we saw. All right, y'all, well, what did you think about that performance there? I really think it did about what we would expect it to do. We've proven that these flight control buckshot loads and flight control loads in general, to be honest with you, to seem to like a little bit tighter constriction of a choke, which is completely opposite of what most of the internet out there will tell you. But we have proven it false several times. So I definitely think that tighter extra full choke gave us a really good core, but it just was tight enough to start squishing the wad just far enough to where we did start to see a few flyers, which does make sense in the grand scheme of things. But what do you guys think about it? Is that about what you expected to see, or were you a little bit surprised? Let me know all that down in the comments. We do have the channel Instagram as well as a mailbox where you can send things if you would like to the channel. All that information will be in the description if you're interested. But with that being said, I'm going to get back to the testing, so I'll see y'all in the next one.